Hey everybody, and welcome back to another severe storm thermal weather forecast. In this forecast, we're going to be talking about Hurricane Francine, basically the entire video pretty much, but we will potentially be talking about something that could affect the United States as we head in towards next week. But just to let you guys know, this video is mainly going to be filled with tropics in detail. So let's jump right in without further ado here, taking a look at our live satellite imagery here. You can see here is Hurricane Francine now, a Category 1 hurricane. Just got the update a few minutes ago. 75-mile-per-hour hurricane with gusts to 90 at times. And on the eastern end, we are starting to see some bands of storms starting to develop. So those are headed towards Mobile, Alabama, as well as New Orleans. So if you guys live there, you're probably going to start getting some damaging winds from those. You might even get an isolated tornado. So just warning you on that. But you obviously know that's not the biggest thing we have here. Obviously, it's Francine here that is continuing to move towards New Orleans and Louisiana here. And look at all these alerts the National Hurricane Center has put out. Like, we have several areas of storm surge alerts, hurricane warnings, tropical storm warnings, tropical storm watches as far north as almost to Jackson, Mississippi. So this is a big heads up. This is a big deal for our friends in southern Louisiana early tomorrow afternoon. All right. So make sure you're staying weather aware with that, because that does look like it's going to be the time of arrival here. And we'll time this thing out just to show you for sure. Okay, so we're kind of going to go 12 hour by 12 hour time frame here. Until it begins to make landfall on Louisiana tomorrow. So just bear with me here. We're using the HRRR model here, and this thing is not moving very fast here. You can see by 9 p.m. EDT this evening here, notice how this is starting to get some steam into it here. As you can see, as of the 8 p.m. update here, 75 mile per hour hurricane here. Max gust shows 75 miles per hour, but I think that's way higher. I think we potentially could have max gusts as high as 90 at times at this moment right now. So just be aware of that. And then as we take it in towards let's say early tomorrow morning, this will likely continue to be a 75 mile per hour hurricane. I think it could potentially get to an 80, but we'll see what happens here. And then as we take it all the way to 11 a.m. tomorrow, this is just upon landfall, folks. So this is when things is going to go really downhill here. This is when the storm surge is going to start occurring for our friends in southern Louisiana. And these waves are going to be packing a punch, and likely we'll have some pretty serious catastrophic flooding going on here. So make sure you're prepared for that if you're west of New Orleans as we go in towards that time frame. And we could potentially have a 90 mile per hour landfall as we go in towards tomorrow, late morning into early afternoon, potentially as high as 115 mile per hour wind gusts there. And then as this continues to affect areas of Louisiana with damaging winds, serious flooding, and serious storm surge, around 3 p.m. tomorrow, we will likely be watching for the eye to be making an appearance here. And this is when the landfall occurs, folks, around 6-7 p.m. tomorrow here. Now, this model takes the landfall a bit further east than the National Hurricane Center has it. So I think this run is a bit interesting in terms of that here. And we'll talk more about that in just a second here. But like I said, probably a lot of storm surge coming in from all the directions here. And even if you're inland, you will likely be near a lake. So like Baton Rouge, Lafayette, New Iberia, and Lake Charles, you guys need to be on alert, because those lakes are going to have waves probably a bit high, higher than normal. So make sure you're just staying aware of that here. But as we take this all the way in towards tomorrow night around 10 p.m., makes landfall around New Orleans. I think landfall is going to be a bit earlier than this. But we definitely shall see what happens here. The models definitely show it will make landfall a lot earlier than that. But we'll see what happens. Like I said, by 10 p.m., I think this is when we could potentially start seeing the storm surge over here in Alabama, as well as eastern Louisiana. So don't let your guard down over there. We will likely still have some pretty nasty conditions here. And then we'll be watching for a squall line to develop tomorrow evening across portions of the Florida Panhandle, and that will certainly bring some damaging wind gusts, so make sure you're prepared for that as we head in towards overnight tomorrow into Thursday here. And then as this goes northward, this is just going to be plain old rain. However, we will have to watch for the potential for some lingering flooding potential, maybe even some high wind potential out of that. But the main area of energy we'll be watching is over here, and I definitely still think we could see an isolated tornado on the eastern end of that. And by me, we still need to talk more about that in just a second here. So let's talk about the isolated tornado threat right now. All right, friends, now let's go more into depth on our tornado threat for the day tomorrow across New Orleans, southern Mississippi, southern Alabama, and the Florida Panhandle here, as we will have potentially a serious situation unfolding, obviously, with Hurricane Francine here. Here it comes, making, like I said, landfall. Very nasty wind gusts around 4 p.m. across areas of Louisiana here. This is when I think we will start seeing the tornado potential because of how much shear we have on the eastern end of the system. I definitely am going to be watching for the tornado potential all along this circle region here. So if you live in New Orleans, make sure you have ways of receiving alerts tomorrow, because obviously, one, you have the hurricane that's going to hit. 2, you will likely have some storm surge, and 3, you have the potential tornado threat. So make sure you're staying weather aware through the day tomorrow here, but that's not all. As we head in towards 10-11 p.m. tomorrow, that tornado threat will begin to shift east, all right? It might not look like anything too much right now. However, these storms will likely have a lot of punch to them. So make sure you're prepared for severe weather in the Pensacola region, as well as even the Mobile and Gulfport region here. And we might still have a tornado potential lingering, potentially in very, very, very isolated fashion here. Around Gulfport in New Orleans by tomorrow evening. But I think that tornado threat will mainly be over here as we go in towards tomorrow overnight here. And then as this continues to move northward, this begins to break off. And what I find interesting is that this band stays sustained. So I think we might have tornadoes alone here, potentially in Panama City and Apalachicola, into early Thursday morning. This is just one model run here, folks, but I think this is going to happen. So make sure you're staying weather aware down there in the portions of Florida. And as we go in towards 4 a.m., 5 a.m. on Thursday morning, this will likely not come with a tornado threat, but it still will likely bring some pretty high winds to your area, like in Jackson, Meridian, Mississippi. I would expect gusts to still be in the 50 to 60 mile per hour range. So make sure you're still prepared for that, and any rivers and lakes will likely flood a little bit. So don't be surprised to see that, but it won't be as catastrophic as Louisiana will likely get tonight. But anyways, as we go in towards Thursday morning here, notice that we still have this area of convective activity. And like I said, I would still be concerned for a tornado threat. And over here, like I said, I couldn't rule it out over here, maybe over here, but I really think the tornado threat is done with Francine as we head in towards basically early Thursday morning. And obviously, I think we will likely have that tornado threat back down in Florida, but I think that's just a severe weather threat of its own, to be honest. So that's kind of interesting to note there. So make sure you're definitely staying weather aware for that. But I think this is mainly going to be rain. Still some gusty winds, probably as high as 40 to 50, maybe going into portions of southern Tennessee. But I think it's going to be mainly a done deal here and very weak as it moves into portions of Tennessee. And then finally, as we go in towards Thursday afternoon, this thing begins to break off of its main energy source. So we'll likely begin to start seeing these storms weaken. However, I still can't rule out maybe some damaging winds from them. So we're going to need to keep a close eye on that. Can't rule out gusty winds with this still as we head into Thursday afternoon, but it will be a lot weaker as it moves into portions of the Tennessee Valley. And another thing I wanted to look at, folks, before we move on here and take a look at our storm surge and other graphics here, let's take a look at our rainfall totals here. And this will help to show basically where the most flooding will be here. And look at this. By the time we go in towards 9-10 a.m. tomorrow, look at this. Probably about 2 to 5 inches on the ground already in portions of New Orleans. But look how this is a big change as we head in towards tomorrow afternoon and evening here. I'm going to zoom in pretty close here. And this is offshore, obviously. But just look at this. We could potentially have 20 footers coming into that region. That is just insane. I don't know why my visible tool isn't popping up. There we go. 14 inches inland here. All right. That just goes to show how much rain is falling here. But just to put it out there for people, this is also likely going to be in the form of storm surge. All right. I'm not going to try to scare you here, but this is all likely. The heaviest rainfall is likely going to be storm surge, especially along the coastline. I can't stress this enough. Look at these colors, folks. That's probably up to 15 inches of rain, if not up to 20. All right, so this is a little on the insane end of things here, definitely, folks. So definitely do not let your guard down if you live in Louisiana for the day tomorrow here. Obviously, we will likely see some pretty heavy rainfall from any squall that develops here across portions of the Florida Panhandle. But like I said, the heaviest rain is likely going to remain fairly offshore. I do think we will likely have an isolated tornado threat in there, though. So make sure you're keeping an eye on that. But just look at this, folks. This is some serious rainfall coming into Louisiana for the day tomorrow. So just be prepared for that as we head in towards tomorrow afternoon. All right, folks, taking a look at our peak storm surge forecast here. Obviously, this is probably not all accurate. However, I think it very much pretty much is, especially for the concentration of where the hurricane's going to go. By tomorrow afternoon, when this makes landfall, I think this could be bringing in as high as 5 to 10 foot storm surge across portions of south central Louisiana here. Vermilion Bay could potentially be up to 5 to 10 feet. And back here, we could potentially still see the storm surge, however, not as excessive here because if you noticed on the model, they're getting the banding here in the damaging winds. So that's probably that hazard there. But look at this here as you go just shy of Rockefeller Wildlife Refuge here across to eastern Louisiana. Port Fortune expecting up to 4 to 7 foot storm surge. So that's still severe storm surge, folks. So don't let your guard down and say, well, there's 10 inches over here. Obviously, that is definitely severe, and that is definitely going to cause extreme damage, to say the least here, along with that wind. But obviously, 4 to 7 foot storm surge is not that much better. So make sure you're not letting your guard down if you're east of Vermilion Bay, because you still have that potential. But as you head in towards Mississippi, Alabama, potentially the Florida Panhandle, you could potentially still receive up to 3 to 5 foot storm surge. So don't let your guard down over there either. Yes, it's going to be mainly in the form of banding here and the potential for swirlies along the line. But like I said, with the wind and stuff, we could potentially have up to 5 foot storm surge. So make sure you're just prepared for that if you live over there. But like I said, the main concentration of the storm surge, which is very, very, very life-threatening, it seems like, is going to be concentrated in south central Louisiana, all right? And I repeat, south central Louisiana here, just along the coast, is going to receive the most storm surge as we go in towards tomorrow. And obviously this is going to produce heavy rainfall and storm surge, so we do have a serious potential for flash flooding here. I wouldn't be surprised to see them at a high risk area, especially where it makes landfall tomorrow, potentially in south central Louisiana there because of that storm surge. But we'll see what happens here. But without further ado here, you can see there's a moderate risk here, 3 out of 4 for flash flooding across Louisiana and portions of southern Mississippi. That is due to the hurricane. Obviously, all of this is, but this is where the most impact will be in that red shaded area. This yellow area here, slight risk for flash flooding, folks. I just want to put it out there. But as you can see, this is where we could potentially expect some more flash flooding here. We're still going to see impacts here. They just will be pretty mild compared definitely to Louisiana here. You're not going to have the storm surge to go along with it. So I definitely think I agree with this, and I don't think they're going to add a moderate there. And then around here we have the marginal risk, which is basically maybe some marginal flash flooding here that we'll need to watch out for. Nothing big right now, but we will continue to keep an eye on that. Next up, we have our rainfall totals with this storm system. And like I said before, some of these rain totals are coming along with the storm surge, and that's reasonable. But this is falling rain totals, folks. So you can see in this red shaded area right here, up to 12 to 16 inches of rain could be expected there. And like I said, that could potentially be in the form of storm surge. So you could potentially have 8-foot storm surge happening in that area. That's just a cool way I like to express it here. And then as you go into this orange area here, 8 to 12 inches of rain. So obviously this is just your rainfall totals here. But that also means if it's showing 20 inches of rain on the models, you probably have about 12-foot storm surge. All right, not meaning to scare you, but that looks like it's the possibility here. Same with this red area, falling rain. Definitely a big concern for that storm surge there, going in towards that time frame there. But that, I'm sorry if that's a little confusing because it's a lot to talk about here. So let's just move on towards the yellow area here, just to simplify it for you. Obviously, half of this is probably storm surge, and probably most of this is most of this is probably storm surge, and some of this is the rainfall. So we're just going to need to keep a very close eye on that to express it in simpler manners here and not a mathematical way. But as you can see here in inches here, you can see this yellow area expecting up to 4 to 6 inches of rain. And like I said, some of these rivers here, we could see some flooding from those because we'll have lingering high winds. We'll likely not see the crazy winds linger all the way up to here. However, I wouldn't be surprised to still see some crazy winds as far north as western, maybe even southwestern Tennessee. So I'm definitely keeping an eye on that. Obviously, this is pretty much all falling rain. I don't think this is any storm surge. However, maybe a little bit from potentially our rivers here. But nothing too big to outcome that right now here. And then this dark green area is just your normal run-of-the-mill 2 to 4 inch rain, and really nothing too big as of right now. And the one big thing I wanted to mention to you guys and really put out there is that we, my friends, have a hurricane evacuation, mandatory evacuation alert here. So if you live in New Orleans, Lafayette, Lake Charles even, as far west of that, or anywhere along the New Orleans, Lafayette, Lake Charles, and anywhere south of that, like on the coastlines, you guys need to get out ASAP by 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, because beyond 6, 7 a.m., that's when the heavy rain bands are going to start making falling land on the portions of Louisiana. It won't be Francine. That's tomorrow afternoon. However, like I said, tomorrow morning, as early as 7, 8 a.m., we can potentially start to see those gusty thunderstorms and gusty showers moving in. So make sure you complete your preparations by 6 a.m. and do not go east or south. That's all I have to say. Anywhere else is fine. All right, folks, we are done talking about Francine for right now. And we're going to go into brief description of what else is coming for the United States, but I'm mainly going to point out any storms, like tropical storms that try to pop up here. So, but I'll talk about some of the U.S. as well here. So let's start putting this into motion here, going all the way towards Friday here. Notice how Francine begins to tread north towards the Ohio Valley regions, but watch how it just gets torn apart. And that is because of an area of high pressure that is sitting over Ohio, and it is likely going to use its very strong southerly flow to basically destroy it. All right, now you're probably thinking, why isn't it moving northward? Because high pressure has sinking air, and I don't want to give a whole science lesson here, so I'm going to make this brief. But you can see around here that sinking air means dry air, basically. So this is heading into a very, very big, strong column of dry air. So that's the reason for that here. But as we go into next week, notice that we will be watching another entity on our doorstep here, potentially making landfall into the Carolinas. Again, the maintained strength and stuff like that is very uncertain here. We could potentially see some shower and storm activity across the Plain States region, and we might actually see our first severe weather event across the southern plains. That'll be interesting to watch there, potentially a signal for a second severe weather season there. But as we head in towards a bit further into next week, notice how this moisture again begins to get trapped in with this very stubborn area of high pressure. It just does not want to move here. And with the southerly flow on the western end of it, I think we'll have humidity, and I also think we'll be dealing with heat. All right, and that also equals a trigger here, and that means we could potentially get some thunderstorms over here to pop into the northern plains, but that's still be determined right now. So we're just going to need to continue to monitor trends going in towards that time frame. Regardless, though, going in towards late next week, things become highly uncertain here. However, like I said, because of this big stubborn area of high pressure, all of the moisture that tries to tread towards the Ohio Valley will likely be torn apart. Probably after this line here is where I think the limiting area is, because of that area of high pressure. But we will have to see what happens. Maybe the high pressure system will get as far north as the northern United States here, that we might not have a really big cap in the atmosphere to stop this from developing. So we'll just need to keep an eye on that as we head in towards next week. However, definitely a big bad sign for these areas, definitely for the potential drought they continue to have building in their area. Now, all right, friends, I don't want to go again too big into detail on this next potential tropical entity here, but I do want to talk a little bit about potential impacts here. And the location is definitely unknown here. But as we go in towards early next week, models are picking up that this could potentially be already a 60-mile-per-hour tropical storm by the time it gets to the Carolinas. And it makes landfall only before potentially weakening as it moves in there on Tuesday afternoon. Again, this will very much differ in a very big way, I'm sure. This could potentially be a Category 1 hurricane or maybe even a major hurricane. We just don't know much information right now. All we know is that there will likely be some sort of storm potentially needing to watch across the eastern seaboard here. And I know I circle Florida, but that does not mean you're out of the woods, because, again, the models will likely fluctuate here. And the main area that this has been taking, it has been the focus region of the Carolinas. However, I still don't want to rule out Florida at this time. And you can see here the National Hurricane Center is definitely reacting to that potential tropical entity here in the coming week here, and there's already a 60 plus percent chance of development in the main development region in that red area you see there. And then there's just a little tiny baby lemon sitting out in the Atlantic. So we'll just need to watch and wait as we head in towards next week. But for now, that's all I have for you guys. Make sure you stay safe with Francine. I hope you like this urgent tropical weather update, and have a great rest of your evening, everybody.